Good afternoon, everyone. Country Flyboy here, and today we're landing the Cessna 208. So we're going to do normal, crosswind, short field, and balked landing. We are set up to do touch and goes here at Valdosta Regional. So right now, we've been told to go straight in the runway 35. I'm going to go ahead and shut the autopilot off. But right now we want to land our before landing checklist. So seat belts and harnesses are secure. Fuel selectors left and right are on. Fuel condition lever is in high idle. That's just a verification. Prop lever is full forward, so I'm going to hold control F3 down to advance it to full forward. And bring a little bit of power out too, because that may increase your airspeed. Because I'm coming in a little fast right now. Alright, radar to standby or off. We want to turn our radar off, so I'm going to zoom in on the thing here and flip it through test to standby. Alright, real quick, I'm going to go ahead and turn flight director off too, because that stays on after you flip autopilot off. And lastly, but not least, autopilot off and wing flaps as desired. We're a little too fast for the wing flaps right now. So quick reminder, if at any time you ever forget your airspeeds, let me turn the post-processing off. Bring up the reference on the knee board, and your airspeeds are right here. So I want to know what my VFE speeds are, and that is 175 knots for flaps 10. We're below 175, so I could use some flaps. 150 is flaps 20, and 130 is 125 is flaps 30. So real quick, look at our airspeed. The white arc is the operating range of full flaps. So 125 is top of the white arc. 150 is right here. That's the second notch flap range, which we are below. So we can deploy all the way to flaps 20, which I'm high and fast, so I might do that. And flaps 10 is 175, which is the top of the green arc, conveniently on this airplane, right there at that red mark. Alright, so, yeah, we're a little fast. I'm going to go ahead and deploy one notch of flaps. Alright, we're clear to land, runway 35.
Clear touch and go, runway 35, Cessna 177.
Now, I requested touch and goes, but we're going to do a stop and go on this first one. This is going to be a normal landing, so real quick, we're going to run the Gump Check, which is normally run for multi-engine airplanes, but we can run it for regular singles like this one. So gas, condition lever is good. Undercarriage, we're fixed gear. Mixture, and prop. And seat belts, gumps. Gas, undercarriage, mixture, props. So gas, we're good here. Both of these are in the on position. Undercarriage, fixed gear, we don't have to worry about that. Mixture, condition lever is full forward. Prop, propeller lever is full in, and S is seat belts, so we're good there. Alright, we're going to bring it up just a bit here. This aircraft flies its approaches at about 80 knots. So, real quick, we'll run through the normal landing procedure. This is a flow, not a checklist, but it's on here in case you forget. So, flaps are full, airspeed 75 to 85. 80 is a good airspeed. Well, actually, no, it's more like the 90 is the approach speed, isn't it? 80 to 90, anywhere in there works. Touchdown, main wheels first, power, beta range after touchdown, brakes as required. So feel free to watch this as many times as you need. I'm going to continue the landing. We're inside the wide arc, so I'm going to go ahead and lower now flaps to 20. Now, the key thing to remember with landing the Caravan is the Caravan's engine does have a decent spool up and spool down time. It takes a decent amount of time for the engine to react to power lever changes. For instance, I'm going to decrease my power lever now. Except for right there. I did that on purpose. Because when you bring this thing all the way to fly idle, there is a noticeable drop in power and your airplane will just drop out of the sky. I'm going to increase power now. So my condition lever has been increased. And look, it took like a full 5 seconds for the engine to start responding. Alright, bringing the power back out now. A little high, so I'm going to go ahead and lower full flaps. We're inside the wide arc. Alright, power lever out. I want to use pitch and trim to maintain 75 to 85 knots. So remember, when you're flying on the backside of the power curve, it's power for air, or power for altitude, pitch for airspeed. 80 knots is a good approach speed in this airplane. It's usually what I shoot for. Now on touchdown, we want to touch down main wheels first with the power lever in idle. It's important. And we've been high this entire approach, but it's okay. Plenty of runway here. Alright, we're coming in on short final now. Main wheels first with the power lever at idle. Alright, so watch closely what I do. Coming up and bring power lever all the way out. Pitch up to flare. Touchdown. Nose down gently. Hit F2 once to bring the throttle into the beta range. Be easy on the brakes. Use aggressive braking if you have to, but you want to be easy on them. One of the reasons we bring the throttle into the beta range is to help save the brakes. If you need to use reverse thrust, you can. You can actually reduce your landing distance by as much as 10% with the use of reverse thrust. So I'm going to bring the aircraft to a complete stop now. Raise the flaps. Verify trim is set for takeoff. And I'm going to increase the throttle now to takeoff. We're doing a stop and go this time. So that was a normal landing. We'll come back around the pattern now and we'll do the short field landing. Alright, so we're here on the downwind for 3-5. A bit of advice, landing approach can be made at anywhere between 75 to 85 or 75 to 90 knots and with any flap setting. That's for the normal approach. Now for short field ops like we're about to perform, the approach is flown at 78 knots and full flaps. So I'm going to wait till we get our touch and go clearance. That will be our cue that we're beam the runway. And there it is. I'm going to bring the throttle out. First notch of flaps in. We're below 150. Remember to always be adjusting your pitch and your trim. I want to stay sort of within the top of the wide arc now that I'm coming in for approach. Alright, we're going to turn onto the base leg now. No more than 30 degrees of bank in the pattern as normal. Using pitch and airspeed, or using pitch and throttle to help me out right now. We're still on the good side of the power curve. Bring it onto the base leg. Next notch of flaps. Definitely want to keep it within the wide arc now. Turn on the final. Bringing power lever out, using pitch to bring me back to the 78 knots range. Alright, full flaps. Power lever all the way out. I need to get down to 78 knots. Alright, there we go. Now I'm going to be playing with both power and pitch here. Since there is such a dramatic difference between flight idle and any other throttle setting, you gotta kind of use both. I'm not even sure if that's 100% realistic. I want to come in at 78 knots. Now remember, the key to a short field landing is pick a spot on the runway and try to land within 200 feet of that. I'm going to teach you a little concept here called the box of action. If you look on your screen, and this applies to real life too, but it's more of a real life trick, but it applies to flight sim too. The box of action is if you look in your vision, which in this case would be your screen, you'll notice that somewhere towards the middle of it, there's going to be a group of objects, in this case the runway, the PAPI, the localizer antenna, and whatnot, where they don't move left, right, up, or down of the screen. They stay in the same place relative to the rest of the screen in the airplane and just get bigger. That is where you would impact the ground if you made no control inputs. So watch for that whenever you're flying. That's called the box of action. That's a key thing here. So if you notice, the runway numbers are moving slightly down, but the first marks just above them, the 500-foot marks, they're not really moving anywhere relative to the rest of the screen. They're just getting bigger and bigger. So if I stayed at this power setting and pitch, that's where I would hit the dirt. So I want to make my landing mark the 1,000-footers here, since I'm accounting for the flare. So I want to touch down within 200 feet of the 1,000-footers. That's easier said than done. That's probably one of the more challenging things about landing on a short field, is touching down within 200 feet of that mark. So it takes practice to be able to do it. I'm probably not going to be able to do it. But let's go ahead and run through our short landing checks here, or flow, so you can see. So flaps full, airspeed 78 knots. Power is idle after clearing obstacles, and power beta range after touchdown. Brakes, heavy braking with full up elevator. Wing flaps retracted after light weight. Note, remove reverse before 25 knots. So to put in what we're going to do, we're going to touch down, move throttle to beta range, and as soon as we want to try to keep the nose wheel up and raise the flaps, and then move the throttle into reverse, and we want to slow. Basically, when our airspeed drops off of the markings is when we want to kill reverse thrust, because we're going to be pretty close to 25 knots then. Alright, so here we go. Alright, we'll be clear of the obstacles now, so throttle is at idle. Remember, on short field touchdowns, you want to be firm, not hard, but firm. No softies here. Alright, nose wheel up, full braking, into beta range, flaps up, reverse. Alright, throttle to idle. And I'd say I went about 1,000 feet down the runway to come to a complete stop. And that wasn't even full aggressive braking. I was a little light on the brakes there. So, yeah, when you do full aggressive braking, you can come to a stop pretty quickly in this aircraft. Alright, we're going to raise the flaps, or verify they are raised. I raised them on landing. And we're going to take off again. Now, next time, we're going to do a crosswind landing. We'll come in, do a crosswind. Alright, so we're back on the downwind now for our crosswind. I've set the winds to be coming out of 030 at about 8 knots. So just a note here, my CDI needle is the runway heading, and my heading bug is the direction the wind is coming from. So the crosswind landing is a lot like the crosswind takeoff in that we want to maintain control of the aircraft at all times. So I'm going to do a normal landing today. Normal landing, again, for crosswind, same procedure, but you can use any flap setting you want. So we can land with flaps 10, flaps up, use the minimum. Use the minimum flap setting as you need it for the runway and conditions. So if the wind is really booking it, you might not want to use full flaps. Alright, go ahead and set flaps to 10. Wind is 8 and roughly a 30-degree crosswind, so we could get away with flaps 10, but just to show you, our flaps set full, but I'm going to use flaps 20 for this approach. Now notice I'm not 100% on the heading. That's because the crosswind correction angle. Alright, go ahead and turn onto the base leg. And no, that CDI is not tuned to the ILS frequency right now, so we haven't shot past the runway. But we are a little close, so let's go ahead and turn on to the final. I think we are going to overshoot it just a little bit. So remember the concept of the box of action. That is going to help you out a lot. That applies to pretty much every landing. So I'm low this time. I'm not going to deploy flaps yet. I'm going to pitch up to convert some airspeed to altitude. I need to slow down anyway. There we go. Did overshoot the final a little bit here. Alright, go ahead and set flaps 20. We'll be using flaps 20 for this approach. Alright, so I'm going to pause the sim for just a second here. And we're going to talk through, it's basically going to be the same as a normal landing except with flaps 20. Airspeed will be a little higher, but really this airplane can fly at about 80 knots with flaps 20, so that's still a good airspeed for us to use. It's a very... Oh, there's a reason this airplane is really popular with bush pilots. So, the key thing to remember is that we can use either the crab method, which is what I like to use, or the wing low method for crosswind approach and landing. So it's completely up to you. Just so that we know, we touch down on main wheels first and we want to take the crab out. So if you're using crab method, you will transition to wing low prior to touchdown. Now just like with a crosswind takeoff where we had to use ailerons to help steer us on the ground, it's the same thing with a landing. We'll go all over the place on the runway if we don't use the ailerons. Alright, so I'm going to bring us in at about 80 knots with flaps set to 20. And just note how bringing at the flight idle, the speed just dies instantly. Very dramatic difference between flight idle and everything. I'm actually going to fly at about 90 knots to 80 knots. It seems to be where it wants to settle with flaps 20. Alright, we're coming in on the last few hundred feet. So we're using the crab method now. The winds aren't really that strong. You can see it is tossing us a bit. But when I bring my throttle out, now, use my rudder to adjust. Ailerons, I adjusted a little too much there. Keep that aileron in. We need to keep control of the aircraft. Throttle is in the beta range. I'm not using braking at all. I'm just letting the friction slow it down. I'll use a little bit of brakes here. And if I bring up my yoke, which I should have had, sorry, you can see that I am in full deflection here. So basically what I did was normal landing, and as you saw as I got there, I brought the crab out with the rudder and banked it a little bit into the wind to go into the wing low method, because you don't want to touch down with a crab. Even though they're pretty thick, they might be able to take it once or twice, but you definitely don't want to touch down with a crab because bad things happen. Alright, I'm going to reset the weather to calm winds and we'll do a balked landing, and that will be pretty much it for the landings video. Alright, this time around we'll be doing a balked landing, meaning we will not be touching down. We'll be going around on this one, just to show you what the go-around procedure is. So, go-around procedure is pretty similar to the Cessna Skyhawk if you've watched my Cessna 172 tutorial. Basically, again, we fly the approach at 75 to 90 knots with flaps set to full. But if told to go around, or if we see we have to go around, we immediately apply flaps 20. So we hit FSX once if the flaps are at full. If they're already at 20, don't worry about it. And actually, no, wait, I lied. It's takeoff power first. So we'll advance the power lever forward to take off power. And then, once takeoff power is reached, bring the flaps to 20. We'll simultaneously be pitching up to start climbing away. Once we are at a safe altitude and airspeed with a positive rate of climb, so basically just positive rate of climb. Once we are at positive rate of climb, on the altimeter, not the VSI. The VSI indicates your climb and descent rate, yes, but this gauge lags. There is an inherent lag in it between the actual input and when that gauge indicates. So, positive rate of climb on the altimeter or needle moving clockwise. Big needle moves clockwise. Sorry. Once we have positive rate of climb, we bring flaps to 10 degrees, and then once we are at a safe altitude and airspeed, or 400 feet above the field, whichever comes first, we'll probably be at safe airspeed by 400 feet. The safe airspeed is anything above 90 knots, basically. Once we get above 90 knots, positive rate of climb, flaps up. So let's demo that. Remember, not landing this time.
Clear to land runway 385.
Come on now.
Clear, touch and go. Runway 385.
Yeah, sometimes Flight Sim's ATC menu messes up. Alright. Flaps 10, power out, pitch down. I climbed a little bit there trying to mess with the ATC window. It does that every now and then where it won't show any options. If it does that for you, close the window, switch frequencies, bring the window back up, and then switch back. When it tells you you need to switch back to that frequency, yeah, just switch back, then bring the window back up. It should have your options there. Alright, let's go ahead and turn onto the base leg. That Skyhawk out there might be coming in to land here, so I'll have to listen out for him. Then again, maybe he's just passing by. Oop. Went across the base leg, the heading there. Go ahead and bring flaps 220. Turn on to the final. Alright, pitching for about 80 to... yeah, about 80 knots. 75 to 90, so 80 or 75 to 85, 75, it really doesn't matter. You can fly this thing at about any airspeed and flap setting. Alright, I'm a little high, so we're going to go ahead and bring flaps to full, and we'll pitch for about 80 knots. You can tell when I bring the throttle to flight idle, can't you? Alright, remember box of action. That is a concept that will help you out a lot. This is going to be a balked landing. So we're landing at a field in the middle of bloody nowhere. Oh God, there's a deer on the runway. Going around, power to takeoff. Begin pitching up. Once takeoff power is reached, flaps to 20. We have a positive rate of climb indicated on the altimeter, flaps to 10. 400 feet above the field, above 90 knots, flaps up.
Going around. Cessna 177. Cessna 177. Copy. Go around.
Now at this point we would begin flying our missed approach procedure if it was an instrument flight, or our go-around that we discussed earlier. In this case, we discussed a go-around would just be a trip around the traffic pattern again. So we'll go ahead and turn onto the downwind now. I'm going to go ahead and make a continuous turn all the way to downwind. I'm not going to separate out a crosswind leg. And that was a balked landing. So quick review, power to takeoff, flaps to 20 immediately. So power takeoff, once that speed is established, flaps to 20. Once you have positive rate of climb, flaps to 10. Once you have positive rate of climb and safe airspeed above 90 knots, flaps up. Then fly your procedure. So that's important. You get the aircraft cleaned up first. Oop, went right past that altitude, didn't I? Just too busy yakking. Get the aircraft cleaned up first before trying to fly your procedure. At least get it to the flaps 10 before you worry about flying your procedure. Many a pilot has been killed doing otherwise.
Clear to land runway 385. Clear for touch and go. Runway 385. Cessna 177.
Alright, so I'm going to land this plane. I gotta do one more touch and go, and then I'm going to actually do a full stop. and we'll discuss what we do after landing.